Welcome into the Boston Sports Summit. I am your host, Tim Barnett, and this show is presented by the Grid Network. We have another week of stories and interesting topics that are going on at Boston sports, from the Red Sox all the way down to the Bruins, and we got the Celtics and Patriots in between, just from top to bottom. It is another interesting week. Even though the Patriots are in the offseason, the Red Sox are about to start their season next week, and the Celtics and Bruins are in the thick of things right now. But first, we're going to kick off with the aforementioned Boston Red Sox. And this team is poised to make a run. They really are. If everything works out, they stay healthy, yada, 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 all the classic cliches that go into a season on, well, if they're healthy and they can do this and do that, obviously they're going to make a run for it. Who's heard that before, right? But the reason why I'm actually excited for this team is because even though John Henry, Sam Kennedy, and this ownership is still cheap, and I will show you later on why, as the title suggests, why this team is still acting cheap, they look poised to make a run. Okay, and I am excited to see what happens. The signing of Alex Bregman, trading for Garrett Crochet, going out, making some of these moves. The only move that I think you and I both despise is Aroldis Chapman. This man, one, should not be in baseball, let alone playing for the Boston Red Sox after 7-8 years ago. We informed his current team, Cincinnati, dude, have you looked into this guy's issues yet? Guess what? He's on the Red Sox right now. But I want to speak to Garrett Crochet. I want to speak to the fact that the Red Sox traded for this man who is 25, going to be 26 in June. We traded for him in the middle of December, right during the thick of things, during the hot stove period. And there's no extension. There's nothing. The dude has nothing. As it stands right now, he is going to do his 2 years here in Boston and call it a day. That's how it feels as it stands right now. Why? Because they can't come to an agreement on a deal. And when you look at Crochet's comments dating back to last season, during the trade deadline, he demanded a trade out of Chicago and wanted to wanted to re-sign. He wanted an extension right away. But but obviously he didn't get traded at the trade deadline. It happened all the way until December. And when you're looking at Crochet and why, and maybe from the Red Sox perspective as to why they haven't signed him yet, well, when you look at him, he was drafted in the first round. He came up in 2020. In 2021, he had a 2.82 ERA with 65 strikeouts in 54 and a third inning. He's more of a reliever at this point. He missed the entire 22 season with Tommy John, so that is a big issue right there. He returned in 23 for 13 games with a 3.55 ERA in 12 strikeouts through 12 and 2/3 innings. Okay, he's, again, focused on being a reliever. He is going through all of his trying to figure out who he is as a pitcher in the big leagues. And then in 2024, last season, this is where he blew up. In the first half of the year, the reason why he became the AL All-Star starting pitcher last season was because he pitched with a 3.02 ERA. He had a walks plus hits per innings pitched of 0.95 in 20 starts with 107 and a third innings. He led the league midway through the year with 150 strikeouts and a 12.6 strikeouts per 9 innings pitched. So every 9 innings, he would strike out 12.6 guys. How do you cut a guy in half? I don't know, but I'm just saying. So he started the All-Star game, pitched well, but I think Chicago, one, they sucked last year. Absolutely sucked. Like it was a new record of how much they sucked. And I think part of the reason, it had nothing to do with Garrett Crochet. But when you see his full year statistics, which are a 3.86 ERA, 209 strikeouts across 146 innings pitched. So going to the halfway point, he had 107 and a third. And then what? If you do the math, 146 and 107, it's what, 39? 38 and 2/3 innings for the rest of the year. So that gets me to wonder, okay, one, what was the issue? Was it because that Garrett Crochet wasn't doing so well? Which I think some of his games, the second half of the season, yes, he struggled a little bit. But I also think, too, Chicago was saving him for trade potential because, again, they knew they weren't getting anywhere with him. They knew that he was their biggest asset that they had and that they needed to move him in order to hopefully rebuild their squad. And if you look at what the Red Sox traded for him, giving up 4 very good prospects, 2 of which were in the top 50 in Kyle Teal and Braden Montgomery, the kid we just drafted in the first round. So you're kind of sitting there going, okay, well, when the deal got done, and this was December 11th that this deal went through, and the Red Sox had their ace pitcher once again from Chicago, a big left-handed pitcher. Who does that sound like? That's his. I know you can't tell. I know it's flipped around, but you turn that over. That's a Chris Sale jersey. So, hey, should I get a Garrett Crochet jersey? Comment below. Match that one. But the Red Sox gave up a lot, right? They did. And Kyle Teal was supposed to be one of the guys that is going to be part of the now Big Three. It was the Big Four with him as the catcher, but we're not worried about him anymore. So now with Crochet coming to Boston, he wanted a deal. He wanted to get an extension done. And then nothing was getting done. Nothing was happening. Very little contract talks. Spring training comes. Now he's pitched in 10 and 1/3 innings with 21 strikeouts, 1 earned run, and a .87 ERA. Now, I will say this. I do know that it's spring training. He's going against some AAA, AA guys. He's also going against some major league guys. You get that, juxtaposition. I get it. But if he can produce on somewhat of a similar level, maybe not a .87, but if he can get back down to the mid 2s, the high 2s, or the low 3s in terms of the ERA, I think the Red Sox got something here, and I think he knows he's got something there. But I think with everything that's going on, right, Crochet wants to bet on himself. He knows straight up what he can do, what he's got, and as long as he stays healthy, he knows that whatever his next deal is, it's going to be on the Max Fried level, if not higher. I mean, Rob Bradford wrote an article talking about how people are viewing Garrett Crochet and his quest for an extension. He wrote, if Crochet does what most in baseball think he will do this coming season, the price tag will likely blow past every other starting pitcher in baseball. But from the Red Sox point of view, there's an opportunity to try to siphon some certainty by waiting out what could be Crochet's second full season as a big league starter. In other words, the motivation and approach might be a bit murky from both sides considering Crochet's complicated situation. And that's the truth. Obviously, the Red Sox, are looking and see the Tommy John just 3 years ago. He made his full return in 24, but was managed on the latter half of the year. So they're like, listen, we're going to stay at this number, and that's how it's going to go. Versus Crochet, he's like, no, I can get this. You're probably Crochet's probably losing some money if he signs the deal now. I mean, let's be honest. But what pisses me off is, you have Garrett Crochet going on the Section 10 podcast and talking about what he expects out of himself and what the contract situation looks like. Take a listen.
He's interested. Like he's interested in a long-term commitment. Like, what makes it about the long-term that intrigues you so much?
Yeah, for me, just my personality. As soon as I was traded over here, I want this to be a place that I could just, run myself into the ground, like just no regards for the rest of my career. Like I want to give everything that I have into this season and not have to worry about potential implications that happen in the long term. That's just the kind of guy I am. I want to leave it all out there on the field every time that I make a start. And, as far as the extension stuff goes, it's got to work out for both sides. But, I look forward to having those conversations.
That's simple. He wants to run himself into the ground. He wants to be here and wants to pitch at such a level and just leave it all out there. He could care less on how it affects him in the long run. He just wants to do what is best for him. And that is followed up by some interesting comments from Sam Kennedy when discussing the situation. But when it comes to Crochet and everything that is going on, again, he is, discussing the fact that he wants to be there. He wants to be the guy, and I applaud him for that. I applaud him that this is what he wants versus other guys who are just like, no, I want to get my money and that's it. I don't want to do anything else, right? So I'm very excited for Garrett Crochet. I'm very excited that he's our opening day pitcher versus some other guys where, heck, the last guy I was excited for was Chris Sale. I'm going to be honest with you. The last guy I was excited for was Chris Sale. And now it's been very hard to get excited for this team. It has. And I think you all have seen it. By the way, I have talked about the Red Sox. I've talked about the fact that this team is so damn cheap. Again, I'm alluding to it now. I'm alluding to the fact that they are cheap. And listen, I understand why they're cheap. I do. But there has to be some moments where you sit there and, you got to bite one, you got to take one for the team. You got to make sure that, hey, you know what? This guy's a good ball player. I think we should keep him. I think we need to pay a little bit more than what we're used to. But no, every single time. This is why they want to run this like a small market team. And they're on the process of succeeding. But at the same time, I don't know if this is going to work. We're so hyped up about three guys who have never played in the big leagues. Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, and Christian Campbell. We're so excited. But will it translate? Will it translate over? And instead of going out and signing big name free agents that are actually worth a damn, you have instances where they're like, no, we're good, even though it will clearly make them better. Again, we lucked out when it came to Bregman, but overall, they are still acting cheap. And I want you to take a listen to Sam Kennedy's comments on what he was talking about with Garrett Crochet, because to me, it kind of blew my mind. I was kind of, again, trying to hold out hope, but I see right through it. I see right through their nonsense that this team will still act like that small market team. Take a listen to what Sam Kennedy said on EEI.
You had mentioned the Crochet deal, and talking to Garrett yesterday, he said that he did not want to negotiate once opening day started, which is something. When you make that trade, what's your view of a possible extension?
Well, we would obviously love to have him a part of the organization for a long time. You've seen a little glimpse of what hopefully is to come. So he and his family need to decide, is Boston where they want to be, and as three of us know, it's not for everybody. But I think given his mindset and makeup, he'll have a lot of success here if that's what he chooses. So we are making it a priority to try and extend a lot of our own players that are currently under control, and he would fit into that category. So excited about conversations there, but we also don't want to push too hard and rush it if it's not the right time for him.
Now, did you catch that? Did you catch that small little comment that he made where it was, oh, no, we want him. Hey, listen, I'm a fan. I like the guy. He's part of our control. I want him. We want him as a Red Sox team. But then again, it comes back to the one little line that he just can't help himself. These guys cannot help themselves. Where, hey, listen, Red Sox fans, it's not on us. It's not on us. No. It's Garrett Crochet and his family. It's their decision. Which, again, makes me sit there and kind of get aggravated, because at the end of the day, he's not 100% wrong, which I will give him that. But the reason why it gets me agitated is because, yes, it is Crochet's, a decision, but he's implying that, no, this is our number, and we're sticking to it, and it's Crochet's decision on whether or not he wants this number. Not that we're going to move up and we're going to adjust and, meet maybe in the middle, maybe pay a little bit more, or, go for the years. The dude is 26 years old, or he's about to be. He's 25, going to be 26. I understand he came off Tommy John. Nowadays, Tommy John is just like a regular common surgery that every pitcher seems to get, and they still have extended careers. I mean, Nathan Eovaldi had 2 of them and is still pitching right now. He's a guy I wish we signed in the free agency again. But it's that arrogance where he's like, it's Crochet and his family's decision on whether or not he wants to be here. In other words, it's Crochet's decision on whether or not he wants to be here at our number. We're not giving him his. It's got to be at our number, which just continues to bother me, because it just goes to show how effing cheap this organization is. You can tell when an organization is cheap by the products that they serve to the fans. And I don't mean the product on the field, which obviously is a part of it, on who they're hiring for the manager or, the staff, the GM, any of that. No. When they cheap out on the effing ketchup, that right there is a major issue. That right there is a big red flag, baby. It is a red flag where if they cheap out on the ketchup, they don't care about you. They don't care. They're doing everything in their power to save a buck. In the classic movie Christmas Vacation, of all the lousy ways to save a buck. That's what it is. That's what it is. And that's why, again, as happy as I am, as excited as I am, and don't get me wrong, I will be rooting for this team. I am still fearful that they're going to pull the same old tricks, the same old shenanigans, because at the end of the day, the Boston Red Sox have turned into the effing Oakland A's. They are so consumed by this Moneyball bull. You know what? I'm sorry. I just got to say it. They're so consumed by this Moneyball bullshit that it's infuriating. It's driving me up a wall. It's driven me up a wall since they traded Mookie Betts in 2020. And it will continue to do that until they get their heads out their asses and start spending money, because they can. You know they can. I know they can. And the fact that they want to sit there and cry, oh, we're so poor. Oh, we don't want to pay. No, you're not. Suck it up. Pay the money. Or, better yet, sell the damn team to somebody who does. Sell the team to somebody who wants this team, who wants the Red Sox to be competitive every single year, like the friggin' Mets and their owner. Steve Cohen, I think his name is. So, again, be more like him. Does he pay lousy contracts? Absolutely. But you know what? At the end of the day, he gets the players that he wants. And yes, we're going to talk all through the year, all through next year, offseason, about Vladdy Guerrero Jr. But I am 99.9% certain that the Red Sox are going to cheap out. They're going to tell you and I that, no, we really wanted him. We were there. We wanted him. See, look, we threw money at him. He just decided to go to New York instead. No, it's not how it's going to work. It's going to be exactly that. They're going to lie to your face, and then they're going to expect you to buy tickets, buy season tickets, buy beer, buy food, all of which are the highest prices in baseball. So tell me again how this is about a winning culture and a winning organization. No, it's not. It's about all the cheap, lousy ways to save a buck. But moving on from being cheap to actually making the wrong contract decisions, it's the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins have, I think, officially hit their skid. They are as my father would say, they are D-U-N done. Just, it's over. This season, we're done. They're 30-30-9. That means they played 69 games. And then that means they have 13 games left. I say, you know what? Pasternak goes on the injured reserve list. Swayman goes on the injured reserve list. Zaka goes on the injured reserve list. Just bring all the kids from Providence up and let it literally be the Providence Bruins getting some NHL action. Because what I've seen over the last 3 games has actually been nothing short of atrocious. You know, you had the first 2 games. You had the first 2 games where after the trade deadline, you shut out the Bolts, which I was at. You came back down 2-0 to beat the Panthers, who in Boston, like that was impressive in and of itself. But then you just saw fall so far flat on your face after that, where it's like you had that high. You were riding that momentum. Hell, I was even talking about, you know what? It might actually be fun to see this team kind of sneak into the wild card. And then what happens? You play up in Ottawa, Swayman versus Allmark, and it goes so well that Swayman had to get pulled after the first period. The dude plays 20 minutes, allows 4 goals, and needs to get pulled against his best friend in Linus Ullmark. Swayman then proceeds to start against Tampa and decides to, cry a river about it. And I'll get to that in a minute. But we end up getting blown out 6-2. And then Korpisalo goes in last night against Buffalo, and we actually had a 2-1 lead, gave up the puck in the offense or the defensive zone. They wrist one right by Korpisalo, tied it up at 2, and then with 10 seconds left, just an absolute joke of a goal that should have never been given up with 10 seconds remaining in overtime. It's just like, and to a Buffalo team, mind you, to a Sabre team that has lost their last 8 road games. Buffalo sucks. They're in another category of sucks. I mean, Casey Middlestat came from Buffalo. Sam Bennett came from Buffalo. Linus Ullmark came from Buffalo. And yet, how are they doing? Oh, that's right. They're actually good players. It's those Sabre uniforms that suck the good right out of them. Being in Buffalo sucks the good right out of them, the talent right out of them. But then when they play you, oh, that's right. You suck. Even worse than them right now. The 2 games I want to talk about with Swayman, the Ottawa and Tampa, the second game against Tampa, was in those 2 games combined, Swayman has an .849 save percentage, a 4 goals allowed, and an average goals against of 6.16. Like, Swayman is done. Like, whatever crossed Don Sweeney and Cam Neely's minds to sign this kid to an $8 by $8.25 million, which roughly rounds out to.
I have 64 million reasons why I'd be playing right now.
Oh, wait, no, sorry, Cam, you're wrong. It wasn't 64. It rounds up to 66. So, like, $8.25, $66 million to a goaltender who has never started more than 45 games in a single season. Sure, yeah, he had to be a platoon guy with Linus Ullmark for the last 2 of them, but it worked. And also, not for nothing, Swayman didn't do his absolute best in winning that job. So to anybody who wants to say, oh, well, he never played, so obviously, like, he couldn't be the workhorse, the guy. Yeah, well, it's part of that is because he didn't do enough to be the guy. Let's not forget, entering the playoffs last year, Swayman was in such a slump the last month and a half, if not final 2 months, where I think he only had 1 good game, and the rest somehow we were able to win, but he wasn't the best, and then just was lights out in the playoffs. This is what happens when you pay guys based off recency bias. And the fact that, like I have said before, go back to my shows during last summer, leading into the year, I would have been like, you know what, dude? Here's our deal. 4 by 6, 4 by 6.5, and even I believe that was too much. But 4 by 6.5, if you don't come down to us by December 2nd, which is the official period for restricted free agents to sign their contracts in order to play that season, if he doesn't sign by December 2nd, all right, peace. We'll gladly trade your ass. Because when you look throughout history, goaltenders are a dime a dozen. They really are. Outside of Ken Dryden, Patrick Waugh, Martin Brodeur, like, there are no other goalies who actually deserve the money that they're getting. It really is that simple. I mean, let's talk a little bit about that. You have the top goaltenders all the way down to Swayman. I'll go top 10. Number 1, Carey Price at $10.5 million. No, not worth the deal. He got hurt too much and now he's done. Sergei Bobrovsky at $10 million. I think that's a little high, but it kind of makes sense. He did win them the cup, so all things considered. But Andrei Vasilevsky, $9.5 million. I would do that deal. Connor Hellebuck, $8.5 million. Very good regular season goalie. Screws up royally in the playoffs. Has never made it to the conference final. Ilya Sorokin and Swayman tied at $8.25. To the both of them, I would done. Terrible contract. John Gibson, $6.4 million. I think for John Gibson in Anaheim, that is still too high, but more reasonable. Then you have Jordan Binnington at $6 million. And again, I think you and I all know how I feel about Jordan Binnington. I think the dude's a bum. He sucks. But for some reason or other, I don't know if it's because it's the TD Garden or if it's because it's a big moment, big game, but the dude showed up. Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, he showed up. The championship for the Four Nations, he showed up. I will give him that. I am nothing if not fair, even though I still think he's a bum. If he's not a bum, then he's an a-hole. Simple as that. Jordan Markstrom, $6 million with the Devils. Philip Grubauer, $5.9 million with the Kraken. And then Igor Shesterkin, $5.67 million. Once you reach those that $6 million range, that $5 to $6 million range for these goaltenders, I can live with it. I can. Because they, like, especially for all these goaltenders who, one, have never been to an Eastern Conference Final, Western Conference Final, or have never been to a Stanley Cup Final and subsequently won one. Like, in order to earn that elite level goalie money, you should be winning Stanley Cups, plural. Andrei Vasilevsky earned that money. The fact that Carey Price got paid, $10 million? I think is a joke. The Canadians have never won the Stanley Cup. I don't care how good he is. You know, again, how many of these guys come off the street? Tristan Jarry for Pittsburgh. The other goalie right before Jarry, I think he came right off the street, won them the friggin' cup. I mean, this idea that you have to pay the goaltender, you have to be, on top of it. Like the goalie needs to reset the market, which, by the way, is what Swayman wanted. Don't forget, he wanted to reset the market. But what has he ever done to reset the market? This is what bothers me about athlete contracts altogether. When you think about it, you have these quarterback contracts, goalie contracts, whatever, making exorbitant amount of money just to what? Fall apart when you really should be earning that money, which is the playoffs. I mean, that to me is just an absolute joke. And listening to Swayman after the Tampa game, he was asked about the goal or one of the goals that happened to him. And I just want you to take a listen to this response, because he was a guy who was fully team first. I am, heartbroken for this team. I want this team to succeed. Team. And now that he got paid, this is the kind of dude, that sounds a lot like a player who just got paid, in my opinion.
How frustrating was that fourth goal? You kind of keeping the team in it for a while, you guys were being overwhelmed. It looked like you didn't see the fourth one.
Well, it deflected twice, so it's tough to see shots that are deflected twice off the play. And I think every goal had some sort of deflection and ended up on their tape. So it's just, that's a game, you know, a lot of those saves are positional saves and they're just CNI shots, unfortunately. So you really can't dwell on it. You just have to move forward, and that was my mindset tonight. It was just any shot that I was going to see, I was going to stop, and if it deflected, I want to make sure I made away with it.
Yes, because every single shot got deflected at least once, and that's why you couldn't see anything. I'm sorry, dude, but excuses, excuses, excuses. Is it hard to see deflected shots? Absolutely. I'm not sitting here thinking that what he does is easy, that I could step in there and make all these saves that he can. One, I'm not that tall, so there'd be a hell of a lot more net for me to cover, but still, you're getting these 80, 90 mile an hour deflected shots coming at you. So I get it. But at the same time, you got your ass handed to you during that Tampa game. You know, it was so bad. And this isn't just a Swayman piece. This is like the Bruins overall. But that second period annihilated the Bruins. This is why I am under the category of all the starters, they're done. Injured reserve, they ain't coming back. We're playing for a lottery pick because in the second period of the Tampa game the other day, the Bruins were outshot 21-0. 21 shots to 0 on net. That has only happened one other time this season. And before then, before any Bruins team that has not registered a shot on net, the last time that happened was 2007. So they did it twice this year, and then it hasn't happened in almost 20 years. Like, that is amazing to me that this team is just that bad. And I'm sitting here just contemplating, like, what can be done? You know, they can, play their hearts out. Zadorov can keep getting in these fights that rally up the fans, that rally up the team. But at the end of the day, we all know it's just a quick jolt of adrenaline. And at the end of the day, they're going to be the team that got their asses handed to them against Tampa and freaking Ottawa. That's this team. They're not the team that shut out the Bolts or came back against the Panthers right after the trade deadline. No. This team is the team that lost 6-3 and 6-2 and just got annihilated, having Swayman get pulled. Him being the 34th worst goaltender in hockey in terms of save percentage. Like, out of 55 guys, I think he's 34th or 42nd, something like that. He's low. Like, it really is a joke at what has become of this Bruins team, and just, the thoughts that run through these guys' heads, and, the fact that they just can't seem to get their acts together overall. Like, I look at this team and I'm like, what happened? Even when Brad Marchand was here, like, it blew my mind. Marchand, a guy who learned not only under Zdeno Chara, but Patrice Bergeron himself. Guys were never called rookie. And I'm not saying he re-implemented this, but they weren't called rookies. They were just they were teammates to Chara and to Bergeron. And again, I'm not saying Marchand reinstated that thought, but still, it's just mind-boggling to see, how far this team has fallen, and it did not take long at all. It really didn't. So, going on from one team that has fallen off a cliff to another team that has fallen off a cliff, hopefully with this team, we can actually see signs of light, but it's a very dim light for the New England Patriots, because that only light as it stands right now is Drake May. That's it. And some other moves just happened recently. First, I want to bring up the fact that the Patriots released David Andrews. Now, David Andrews, longtime captain, a guy who he gets it. Like he would have been a great player for Mike Vrabel. He understands that mentality, working under Bill and, trying to hold other players accountable. He was with Josh McDaniels. Like, again, I don't think there is another player in the NFL today who knows Josh McDaniels' system better than David Andrews does. So my question is, why now? Why did you release him now? Oh, because you wanted to sign Garrett Bradbury, who I'll talk about in just a minute. But is the whole reason because you want to sign Garrett Bradbury, that you're like, oh, Bradbury wouldn't come if Andrews was on the roster, or Andrews would be pissed off? No, I think Andrews is a consummate professional, and he understands the nature of the beast. But to not have him there in the locker room to say to Bradbury, hey, this is kind of what needs to be done for this play, that play, and that play. Or for Ben Brown, even, I don't get the concept. I don't get the concept of why now. Why not let David come to the realization in training camp, in OTAs, that, you know what? You're looking a little slow there, kid. You're getting beat a lot more often than you used to. All right. Would you like to retire? Or do something along those lines and hope that he kind of gets the hint. I mean, I'm not saying that that's a nicer way of doing it, but at least it's helping out the offensive line for the future to understand McDaniel's system better. If they have any questions, they can go to Josh, they can go to David. And David spoke on his podcast about getting let go. And here's part one.
No athlete wants to go out like that. So, I thought I could have the surgery and see what happens. And, obviously the team made a decision that, they're trying to do what's best for the football team. And, Hoy, we've been told that for a long time. And, you respect that as a player.
Like I said, a guy who gets it. He does what's best for the team. And that's why I've always loved and respected David Andrews and thought he was such a great New England Patriot. But to cut him now, I would hope that this wasn't a Mike Vrabel decision. I would hope that this is an Elliott Wolf decision, not only because, one, it gives me more ammo to attack that weasel, but if Mike Vrabel is so set on, kind of removing that sense of entitlement from this organization, David Andrews is not the entitled one. It was all the other bums, Dietrich Wise, Jelani Tavai, Jack Jones, even though I know he was gone prior, but still, it's those guys that need to be fixed, that need to be, get out of here. You're done. You're done infecting everybody. David Andrews never felt like one of those guys. And so David Andrews also goes on to discuss a little more, again, just to show how good of a guy he is. I'm not even talking about him as a player, him as a person. Listen to part two here.
Yeah, if you're a competitor, you're not great, this is all no one wants to get fired, even in the real world.
That's right.
And, but yeah, I definitely respect their decision. Do I like it? No. I mean, I think, like I said, I think I could provide value. And, I was hoping that I could try to play, and like I said, just trying to get the ship in the right direction, and help the organization and the community and whatever you want to say.
I mean, I just feel bad for the guy. Like, and again, at the end of the day, again, it is a business. I think we all understand that. And, I try to sit there and I don't try to side with the team or the players, like one more than the other. But this is an example of a guy who, he's earned his stripes. He's earned his reputation. He deserved better. I think David Andrews is probably one of the more underrated offensive linemen in the league, or was at least, and so that's why I think it's tough. But the Patriots did go off and sign Garrett Bradbury of the Vikings, who was a first-round draft pick in 2019. He's only missed 3 games in the last 2 years, was ranked dead last in QB pressures by a center last season by PFF. He's much better in the run game, as I'm told. So, again, it makes me sit there and wonder, what's going on? Why did Minnesota release him? Why did Minnesota not want him back? And again, obviously Minnesota's got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. They got a stud receiver. They're going to try to work it out with J.J. McCarthy, who suffered a serious injury that made him miss his entire rookie season. So they're going to try with J.J. McCarthy, but I understand, like, Garrett Bradbury, okay, cool. I'm not excited about it. Not just because he's a center or he's an offensive lineman, but because I think they just went about it the wrong way. I think had they signed Garrett Bradbury, had they gotten him, signed him, and David Andrews was still here with Ben Brown, I don't see why it's an issue. I mean, again, you got to remember, Bradbury played in the league. He was a first-round draft pick, started every single game except for 3 games in 2 seasons. And so it's not to say that he's should be much better than Ben Brown, but he's better in the run game. So obviously that might be the reason why Minnesota doesn't want him, is because they need somebody who can get in there and be a pass protector, because they need J.J. McCarthy time. They need to give J.J. McCarthy all the time in the world to get the ball to Justin Jefferson, to Jordan Addison. And we're looking like a team who is defense heavy, run dominant, especially with this addition, if he is that much better in the run game. Now, frequent commenter, not Doug, throwing a couple comments out here. I'm thinking the Pats are going back to the early 2000s defensive monster teams. I'm actually excited for this season. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm excited for this season too, but we have some major gaping holes. Also, all the wide receivers need to be fixed. Well, listen, the wide receiver is a diva position, and I'm going to get to that, in just a minute. But in terms of, this team being a defensive monster, I think they very well could. I mean, I would love if Abdul Carter somehow fell his way to 4, and we'll do more draft talk as the draft gets closer, but I would love if Abdul Carter got to 4, and then he, and we drafted him. Then our defense would just be outstanding. But I don't think that's going to happen. And 2, we are desperate for a left tackle and a number 1 wide receiver. And speaking of number 1 wide receivers, left tackles too, Cam Robinson went and signed with the Houston Texans. Now, I understand Doug Marrone has a very good relationship with Cam Robinson because he's coached him before. He drafted him, which also means that Doug Marrone also knows his issues. And from what I'm hearing is that he was not the best guy to, not show up, but he was not the most, how do I phrase this? He was not the most leadership type of guy, I guess is the best way I can say it. Like, he would do his thing and then be done with it. Like, that type of mentality, I guess. He wasn't invested. He wasn't fully invested where he wanted to make it his life, was to be the best left tackle in the world. He knew he was good. He knew he was talented, and he parlayed that into a halfway decent career, but he has his character issues. And so I think that's why the Patriots didn't go after him, even though, not for nothing, they should have. Like, again, the Patriots are a team now where another team's trash is our treasure. Like, that's what the Patriots have turned into. We're not picking up strays and then turning them into elite players like we did with Chris Hogan. We're not doing that anymore. We're like, oh crap, hey, you're a halfway decent player, even though you can't pass block for crap. Here, come with us. Like, that's I feel like what the Patriots have turned into. Not to mention, speaking of wide receivers needing to be fixed, all the diva wide receivers, the Patriots, there was a report that just came out the other day or late last week where the Patriots were afraid of signing guys like DK Metcalf and Devontae Adams because they were too much of a diva and were afraid that they'd ball hog, just ball hog, right? And complain and, complain to Drake May. They were afraid of how that would affect poor little Drake May, the 22-year-old kid. I mean, what a load of crap. Like, I don't know. Have they looked at the roster lately? Have they seen the fact that you have Jalen Polk, who has more drops than he does catches, claiming to have the best hands in the league on Instagram? And Javon Baker, when he got drafted, went out and said that he can make people in wheelchairs stand up by how great he is. Like, what are we talking about? You're so afraid of diva receivers. You have two friggin' divas right here. And not to mention, Cooper Kupp signs with Seattle because you didn't want to pay him $15 million? Are you out of your mind? Listen, I said this on X. I was not a fan of trading for Cooper Kupp or bringing Cooper Kupp here. But you know what? When it was reported that he wanted 13, 14, and then signed for $15 million with Seattle, you bet your ass I would have wanted Cooper Kupp here. For that money? Absolutely. It's a friggin' bargain. Like, what a joke. You have all this money in the world, and you're still cheap. You still are afraid because, poor little Drake can't handle a diva receiver. The hell does that mean? You really looking down on your own, what could be superstar quarterback? Like, it's asinine to me how these guys think. And to me, it just screams that, no, we're going to tell you that that's our issue. We're going to tell you that that's our issue because at the end of the day, the bobos out there who are like, Patriots are great no matter what they do. I love every single move that they do. Releasing David Andrews was the right thing, blah, blah, blah. All these, like, those idiots can accept the idea that, okay, yeah, that makes sense because we don't want Drake May to get affected by the diva wide receiver, rather than the fact that that is easily digestible. Instead of coming out there and saying, well, no, we just didn't want to pay DK Metcalf all that money. We didn't want to pay Devontae Adams all that money. Even though, yeah, that's right, you were allegedly throwing $20 million at Chris Godwin. That more and more makes me to believe that that report is BS. 100%. You know, like it's that type of stuff, you know, that just grinds my gears, drives me up a wall. Like, if you're gonna be honest, just be honest. You know, and hey, I'd give you more credit, Mr. Kraft. I would give you more credit, John Henry. I would give you more credit if you just came out and said, "Yeah, you're right. I'm cheap. I don't want to pay that much money. That's ridiculous." Is it that hard to say? Even though you're wrong, it's still absolutely ridiculous. And that excuse was just nonsense. You know, I mean, you have Rabel in there who you don't think he can control the diva receiver. You know, you can control what he's doing. And then, of course, not to mention, at the end of the day, if you're going to get a superstar receiver, guess what comes with it? A diva attitude. So spare me on this fact that, oh, we don't want to sign diva receivers because we don't want it to affect Drake May and his development. If anything, it would actually help Drake May because these divas can actually get open. Can Jalen Polk get open? No. Javon Baker can't even see the field. Pop Douglas, he might be shifty, but he's also 5'8". So, get out of here with that nonsense. Like, it boggles my mind how these guys think that they're doing the right thing when they're not. They're just being cheap. So, it's just, you know, if we're going to talk about one team being cheap, let's talk about one team that actually enjoys spending money, or at least did until they have to sell it. But the Boston Celtics, you know, have won their last couple of games after losing to OKC, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But Porzingis came back, beat Brooklyn a couple of times. Baylor Shireman had a great game last night against, was it last night? Yeah, I think that was last night. The Bruins were the other night. But Baylor Shireman had a great game. He scored 20 points as a rookie. Yes, it's against Brooklyn, but even still, props to him. I'm not getting overly excited for him yet, but I'm always excited when you have, you know, the rookie or, you know, the new guy come in and he just has himself a game. I mean, how can you not love that, right? I mean, I think we all remember 2008 Game 2, the Leon Poe game. Leon Poe was on the team all season, but that game really solidified him, you know, with the Celtics and, at least in my opinion, the fan base. So, and then another side note just with the Celtics, did you know that they officially, as of today, are not the betting favorites to win the NBA championship for the first time since October of 2023? That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. And I'm like sitting there going, all right, well, you know what? That gives them more fuel to the fire. But it also says to me that, hey, Cleveland, OKC, I don't want to give the California teams any credit yet, but it gives those two at least more credibility in my eyes. That, you know, not to say that they haven't earned the credibility, because OKC, you know, showed me something when we played them last at the Garden last week, but it was, I was a little surprised by that. But you know what? I think that fuels Joe Mazzulla. I think Joe Mazzulla's looking at that going, I love it. Let's go. Because it just adds fuel to the fire. He gets to hang that up in all the lockers. He gets to talk about, hey, you're not the favorites anymore. So go out and earn that championship. And I guarantee you, he's going to probably bring up all the comments, you know, before and after they won the NBA Finals, saying that, oh, the Celtics, it was a fake championship. It was a fake. It was like they all the key players for the other teams got hurt. They didn't face tough opponents, blah, blah, blah. You know, like, I guarantee you Joe Mazzulla is going to be showing those left and right. It's going to be awesome. But to talk about that OKC game. Now, couple notes to begin. Jaylen Brown fouled out. Not a great game from him. He sucked. Going 5 for 15 with just 10 points. Never making a single three that he attempted. And the Celtics shot 36 first half 36 first half threes, which was an NBA record for 3-point attempts in any half. Amazing. Then they finished with 63 3-point attempts, which is the most in a single game in Celtic history and tied for third in NBA history. Now, that in and of itself is easily explainable as to why they lost. Not to mention the fact that the foul discrepancy in that game was astronomical. 35 free throw attempts from Oklahoma City to Boston's 12. 35 to 12. Kind of a big discrepancy, right? And you could hear Eddie House after the game on the post-game live on Comcast Sportsnet, NBC Sports Boston, complain about the officiating, how it wasn't fair. Jaylen Brown got fouled out. All these things. So I would have agreed with him if it wasn't for the fact that the Celtics took 63 3-point attempts. The whole thing about about free throws is you got to be aggressive. Taking threes is not aggressive. The only thing with that is you just hope that some moron is trying to back your shot and his whole momentum either goes into you or his foot slides underneath your foot so you don't have a proper space to land, which is a foul. Those are the only two ways you can get a foul versus going to the hole, trying to maneuver in like all these just basic basketball ways. But no, they would just pass around, swing it around, take it, pop a three, 63 times. And you're telling me that it was the ref's fault that there weren't more foul attempt or more free throw attempts for the Celtics in that game? That it was totally one-sided? I would have agreed with you had that number been 45 3-point attempts, which is still astronomically high. Like, this is the problem. Our style of play does not constitute getting free throw attempts. You're banking on the fact that, like I said, someone just has their whole momentum coming at you while you're taking a three, or their foot slides under your foot, which is very rare. It happens, but it doesn't happen to the point where you're going to be going to the line for 35 attempts. Like, that's the thing. It's all in the game plan. And the funny part is, taking 63 threes, the Celtics were still in the game in the final minutes. They still could have pulled that out. But they were just shooting to shoot at that point. They were just like, if I make this one, then we'll be back in it. If I just make this one, I'll make up for the one that I just missed. If I make this one, I'll make up for the last two that I missed. And it's going to, it's like a gambler. It really is like a gambler where you place this sure bet, like you know it's going to hit. It doesn't hit. Then you're like, crap, I got to not only make another bet to make that money back, but then I got to throw more money down to make more money that covers the first bet and then pays me out on, even more. That doesn't hit. Like that's the type of game that the Celtics get into when they don't hit their threes. And that's the type of game that scares me going into the playoffs. I don't care who they play. if they shoot 63 threes in a single game and they have the shooting percentage that they had, they're going to lose. It's that simple. I don't care who they play. This is why they have to find the balance. They have to be able to drive to the hole, draw the fouls, get Oklahoma City off guard, have Oklahoma City collapse to then leave the three-pointers open. If you don't do that, again, it's kind of, it's weird crossing sports, and I'm hoping I'm making a proper analogy here, but it's like the West Coast offense. They're using the pass to open up the run, whereas a lot of teams use the run to open up the pass. If you have the defensive, if you have the defensive front seven stacking the box, expecting the run, that's going to leave the receivers one-on-one on the boundaries, and it's an easier chance of them getting open than it is to have dime package in there where the defense is daring you to run the ball, and yet you still pass the ball. That's what the Celtics did. Oklahoma City was daring them to drive to the paint, drive to the hole, but our game plan is like, nah, we'll just settle for the three-point shots every single time. You only shoot 90 to 100 shots in a game, if not a little more. So taking 63 threes, that is insane. Absolutely insane. And like I said, I'm one of the guys who, I don't like to, but if I see some questionable officiating, I'll call it out. That could have been questionable officiating had we not set the record for most 3.5 and shot 63, which broke a Celtics single game 3-point attempts record. So, again, the Celtics are well on their way to, at least becoming the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference and making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. But if they're going to get to the Eastern Conference Finals and the NBA Finals, they're going to have to clean up their act when it comes to shooting 63 threes in a single game. If you're shooting that many threes, then you better be draining them at a 60% clip. You better be on the money. You're just hot, man. You can't miss type of 3-point attempts if you're shooting that many. But if you're not, here's an idea. Change up your game plan. Adjust. Don't look at the expected numbers, but adjust. Get the easy buckets. Build your way back into this game. Okay? I don't know why. It's not hard. Just think it through. Well, I do want to thank you guys for sticking around. This is the Boston Sports Summit presented by the Grid Network, the one show that is able to talk about all 4 Boston sports teams. I am so thankful to be here. I am your host, Tim Barnard, and I want to thank you all for sticking around, watching the show. And if you haven't, please like, share, subscribe. All right, share this with your friends, share this with family members, Boston sports fans or not. Thank you. Just please subscribe. It would do me a lot of good. Also, don't forget to follow me on all the social medias, Boston Sports Summit on Instagram, BOS Sports Summit on X, and then Boston Sports Summit on YouTube, as well as the Grid Network, who have a whole host of great shows. It is going to be a great season, I think, for baseball. The Grid has their own NFL draft preview show, and we might even have a live draft show like we did last year. So don't forget, subscribe to the Grid Network, like, share, everything. Thank you so much, and I will see you all again next week. We're going to even introduce a brand new segment next week, which I think you guys will enjoy. So thank you so much, and I will see you all next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Have a great one, and as always, God bless.